Hello, welcome to True Hoop with me, Jarod Hector, and Coach David Thorpe. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing well. Um, David, one of the things I want to talk about on today's show is what I think one of the better stories in the NBA this season, and that is the Detroit Pistons. You and I on our season preview shows talked about, it'd be nice for a team that won 14 games. If they win 18 games this year, 20 games, 21 games, wow, that you're moving in the right direction. David, it is January 23rd. The Pistons already have 23 wins. Dare
And some
I
big
say,
wins. Some big wins.
Yeah, they're on track to win 41 games this year. What a turnaround that would be for the Detroit Pistons.
Yeah. I watched them play a couple of games recently. They had a big win last night, didn't they?
Atlanta.
Atlanta, yeah. I had that game on. That's right. I mean, it helps to have Cade Cunningham. We can start there.
Well, yes, let's go there. So this is year 3 for Cade. And look, we always talk about development's not linear, players making a jump, all that, and clearly his metrics are up and all of that. But from a player development coach's eye, what are you seeing that Cade is doing that is just way better than what he was doing his rookie year and his second year?
Well, so first of all, he seems healthy.
That helps.
Yeah. Yeah, obviously, more than anything. Yeah, he's just healthy. I was talking to a player last night, a college player, very, very high level, like up for player of the year in one of the best conferences. And he said, I've not felt right since the summer. He's playing great, but he doesn't quite have the punch that he needs.
Mm-hmm.
In the offseason, he'll be in the NBA next year. He wants to make sure his knees are totally fine, whatever. Like, this is Cade. When you're not where you can be, you just can't do the things you want to do and your mind wants to do. I've seen him play not so good this year because of good defense, but he was still going after it. So part of the player development is just, you've got the green light, but figure out how you want to go score. He's bullying guys. He's shooting well. He was the unquestioned first pick in the draft. Tell me if I'm wrong. I think that was the draft of Barnes and Mobley.
Correct.
Yeah. Jalen Green as well, but I thought he was significantly below those guys. And I think I'm right when I say that. So he was always that guy. And he's playing that part now. The other thing that I like about Detroit, and this is where I always say coaches can get better. And I don't know ultimately with Bickerstaff he's gotten better at. We'll see over time. Certainly the evidence right now is very good. They're really tough-minded. I saw the very first game that they played this year, as it happens. Listen, I don't mean to distract you, but you're talking to a strange man. Okay? There's a problem. I have a problem. Like, I know who the Pistons played the first game of the season. I watched it. And I tell you it's a problem because my wife's in Maui after being in Honolulu. And she sent me a picture 2 days ago of seeing sunset. I've never been to Hawaii. She's been there 5 times now. And she's above the clouds. Her and her sisters drove above. There's a place above the clouds, literally, where you can see the sunset. She sent me a picture of the clouds. And then the next morning, she sent me a video. They went whale watching. And the rule is you can only get within 100 yards or 100 feet of the whales. One or the other. I don't know which one. But you can't keep the whale. They don't know the rules. This whale just came right to the boat, was hanging out.
Yeah.
I couldn't have been more bored. I mean, I'm thrilled for her.
David.
That same day,
David, if I took you on the road to Hanator in Maui, you would not be bored.
No. So my point is this. I completely agree. I'm going to London in February with my 2 brothers for my birthday. I don't care what we do. When they told me let's go to Stonehenge, it's an 8-hour day. I'm like, great. I can hang with my brothers for 8 hours in a small, fantastic. I don't care about Stonehenge. If I'm there, I enjoy museums a lot. I enjoy history. My point is, if I'm sightseeing, I'm fine. I just have no interest in it. I'm happy to tag along with whoever I'm with. I'm a good team player. But when we talk about teams like the Pistons, and I was telling you the night my wife drove up the mountain, I watched 7 hours of basketball that day. When I ordered a bunch of food for her last meal Friday night. Yeah. A ton of extra food. She was leaving in the morning just so I never had to leave the house to go get food. I had to go last night for the first time. I had to actually cook food because I didn't have any more leftovers left. I just want to watch games. I can't wait to watch the Pacers and the Spurs at 2:00. So Detroit, I watched them play a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
Buddy, they were pugilists. There were some fighting motherfuckers. It was actually against the Pacers, it turns out,
Yeah.
who they played the first game of the season, and it was a war in Detroit. Indiana won.
Yeah.
Then they beat Indiana's ass in Indiana later in the season, and then this last game, Indiana got them pretty good. But it starts with that willingness to fight.
Mm-hmm.
Every possession matters. The ball is mine. I'm going to take it. And then also setting good screens, executing their game plan. Of course, they lost Jaden Ivey, who I think was he was coming as a player. But they're just not a fun team to play. They muck it up. Like some teams are different. And you don't want to play against them. Clippers aren't fun to play because their aggressiveness and chaos creation. Mm-hmm. Pacers stacking actions and speed.
Houston's not fun to play.
yeah, right. Celtics because their talent, shooting, whatever. Houston's toughness. Detroit's basically Houston in the East, but just maybe a year or two behind because they don't have those veteran guys. But they also have the best player of the group of those two teams.
Yeah.
So Cade's probably better than Şengün or anyone else.
You know, you always say that this is a coaches league as much as anything else.
Yeah.
And look, this is not about bashing Monty, but it's essentially the same roster as it was last year. Yeah. And they just look, like you said, they give a shit and they fight and they compete. And you got to give JB credit. By the way, he did that with Cleveland. Cleveland wasn't a slouch team when he was there.
Right. No, it's a very good point. I'm a big believer in, first of all, growth of coaches, as we've talked about, but also what's required of coaches as you evolve into winning a championship. Mazzulla last year, without question, had the right recipe. I don't know if he has it this year. There's a little concern right now in Boston going on. Mm-hmm. I think they're coasting. We'll see what happens when it matters most, right? Detroit coasted for years, right into the NBA Finals every year, and then lost every time but one time. But still, for now, though, Bickerstaff clearly has done, right. It's weird. Atkinson has taken his Cleveland team and enhanced it. Mm-hmm. I don't think there's any question. He's up for Coach of the Year. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't think he's going to win it, but we have 30-plus games left.
Yeah.
So what if they win 50 games? Wow. They're on track to win 42 now?
Yeah, 42. Yeah.
What's their record? 2 games over 500?
Yeah, they're 23 and 21.
Yeah. So they can win 42, 43 games as currently, and who knows, maybe they'll get even better. So, he's just, the voice works. You know, this is a Euro soccer fan. Your voice sometimes wears out. Yep. And I think I know for a fact, I'm talking to Cavaliers players, it was wearing out in Cleveland. Seems to be a breath of fresh air. And also, maybe he learned something. Mm-hmm. Right? You would hope that he did.
Yeah.
You would hope that he figured out there's some things I did in Cleveland that I need to be better at. I would not be surprised, by the way, if he actually did come to that realization personally.
Yep.
And I mean, like I said, they are, I saw him interviewed after a game where he sounded like he wanted to fight.
Nice.
And he made a comment like, we're going to play him again. So I don't think teams always take on the attitude of their coaches. I'm sure they don't. But sometimes some teams do, and this is happening there. And it's working. And,
look, Bernie, JB, who's Bernie's son, he really has improved their defense. They are, the last 10 games, they are up to 6th in defensive rating. Yeah. Offense, they still need some work, but look, middle of the pack, which is again a far cry from what they were a year ago. They're young, right?
Yeah, they've got all those guys, almost everyone. Sir Thompson cannot shoot.
No, but he can guard.
His defense. I love his defense. Yeah, he cannot shoot. Well, one day maybe he can.
Yeah,
and some of these other guys, same thing. I actually like Marcus Sasser. He's not there yet, but he's not bad. He can get better. He comes off the bench. Cade can still grow. I don't think there's any reason to think he's done.
Without question.
We'll talk later about some other teams. The roller coaster of a player's career is just the reality of the business. And so you go up and down, maybe up a little higher, and then down a little bit higher. That, Jokic and some guys just tend to trend upward all the time. But they're the best in the world.
Correct.
But Cade can do that. Like I liked him as a Jason Tatum type. Literally wrote that in our True articles years ago. He's more of a point guard than Tatum is, although Tatum handles the ball a lot anyway. Mm-hmm. His usage rate is high. Cade. So listen, Tatum is a perennial All NBA player.
Mm-hmm.
That's Cade's upside.
Cade can be that.
And I still think he's the third best player
In that
talent-wise
draft.
of Mobley and Barnes.
Yeah.
That tells you something how good he is.
Those guys are so
how
good.
Those guys are, rather. Yeah.
And Mobley in a good spot. Right now he's out and he injured. Didn't play in that game against Houston last night. What a game that was, by the way. Houston up big. Cleveland made a comeback. They play again on Saturday, I believe. So that'll be fun to watch. The rematch there. Do we think what I love about this Pistons team, David, is what I liked about Houston, and I talked about this before, which is if you can get a team that is young to buy in on defense, when the offense comes around, they're going to be in good shape, much like Oklahoma City now, what Houston, I think, is going to be when they're a pretty good offensive now. I mean, Jalen Green's been on a run of some really awesome games. I love that. When young kids, because I always say it, nobody wants to guard. That's the most boring part of the game. I want to do triple step back threes and all the cool shit that gets me on TV. And the girls like, but that's not winning, right? That's something that helps you win, right? If you give a shit about guarding, that can really help you win. And I love that he's got a young team doing that.
And it's not just guarding the ball. One of the things that's most glaring to me is off-ball stuff where the ball comes to you. One of my criticisms of Tyrese is in those situations where he's in position to help, someone's flying downhill, he's avoiding contact. Now, I don't want him to foul. But sometimes you have to be willing to risk a foul and making sure this fucker doesn't score this, especially late in game. He just doesn't do it. Maybe one day he will. He is pretty slight. Maybe that's a problem. I don't mean to pick on Tyrese, but I notice that kind of stuff all the time. You aren't getting that with Detroit typically. There's pretty much everyone's. So when you say buy-in, that's the buy-in. Is care about it, mindfulness, and knowing the scouting report. We'll send clips to our players. And it'll be literally the words, know your scouting report.
Mm-hmm.
This is not a hot closeout, right?
Yep.
This is not, you can't let Tyrese Maxey explode right-hand dribble. You have to make him go left. He's too good with his right hand, then right foot, right hand finish. So you have to get in front of him to his right before he gets really ahead of steam. So these are the kind of things Detroit is doing a better job of. They're making mistakes, like anyone is. Sometimes they don't double players that need to be doubled. Sometimes they think Sir Thompson can guard up when he can't. He's amazing, but not that guy yet. That to me is just chances for growth in the future, which is, I'm glad for Detroit. I love that city.
No, it's wonderful. A player development question for you. So you have a player who is competitive, right? But maybe he's slight in build, like a Tyrese, but competitive and obviously wants to play and cares about defense, but maybe, as you said, shies away from the contact, just doesn't want to get bullied and hit in the chest every time. How do you coach around or to that?
Well, to me, I try to hold him accountable for, okay, you're bad on defense and this is why. And so you have to make a choice. Tyrese is, a very rare player. He's so good offensively, He gets away with it.
Right.
If you aren't that guy, well, you're in Poland. If you're not a good offensive player and you're not willing to take a charge or hit someone, you've got to be overseas. And you may struggle there too, by the way, because they take charges there and they're very rugged and physical. But yeah, to me, I always say what we do is like holding up a mirror to players. It's like, hey, here's what you're doing. Here's what you say you want to be. They're not parallel tracks here. They're running in opposite directions. So you have to make that choice and then live with the results. Yeah, that's what we do. At that level, yeah. At the high school level, you know what I did?
What?
When you were a freshman, I waited till the end of practice when everyone was soaking wet. Remember, I was coaching in 1987. We had no air in most of our gyms in Florida. So where I coached was at like a big bar, like an old barn in a sense. It was a gym, but it was old.
And smelly as shit.
We're soaking wet. And I would have a player stand at the block, a 9th grader or a 10th grader if you were new to the team. And then a player stand at the elbow. And I initially used a basketball. Then I said, I don't need a basketball. And I'd have the player at the elbow run over the guy taking the charge on the block. And I would teach him how to take the charge, how to absorb contact, go straight backwards, how to make sure he keeps his head from hitting the ground, and how to slide, which was easy when they're soaking wet. That's why I waited at the end of practice, so that you could absorb some of that. You did all the contact here, but you can soften some of the blow on the ground because our floor was right over concrete. It was hard. The wood on the concrete, yeah. So you got to slide. Oh, yeah, I did a lot of crazy shit. They would probably not be allowed today. But we took a lot of fucking charges, won a lot of fucking games, and my guys were not soft. Can't do that in the NBA. I try to do it with my son's teams in high school, and I'm just volunteering. The guys loved it because at this point I knew really how to teach it, and every time you did it, everyone had to erupt. Oh yeah, if you were on my bench in JV and a teammate took a charge, even if it was called a block,
right,
and you didn't get up erupting with, you're in the locker room, buddy. Like we are going to reinforce that sacrifice
culture.
So that to me is what needs to happen all the time. And our coach in the varsity level for my son didn't like it. But at the NBA level, like I'm flat out, I tell guys who aren't the most gifted offensive players, they're just good. But you have to be able to do this in the NBA or you may not make it. So that's the choice you're really coming. Do you want to be in the rotation? Then you got to be willing to take a charge or just muck things up. Like one of my favorite things a player can do, which Detroit does all the time, is don't let that other motherfucker get the rebound.
Yep.
Just slap it away. Just get in there. Don't worry about your pretty face, which is not easy for some guys. Just get in there and pop it loose. I used to tell Chicago Bulls players playing with Joakim Noah, stick around the rim because nobody gets a clean defensive rebound against him. He gets into everything. The ball is always kind of popping around. Go clean it up for him. Right? That's a gift to have someone like that. So Detroit, and they have Jalen Duren, who I'm not a huge fan of, but he is what he is. He is he's playing really well.
He is.
That dude's a beast. Yeah. And Beef Stewart, too, is a tough guy.
Beef, I love it. Beef Stewart. No, he is.
Beef Stewart.
Talk about somebody that likes to muck it up. He got no problem getting physical and taking
from Rochester. Right? I think it's from Rochester. I'm almost sure he and Thomas Bryant grew up together in Rochester. Yeah.
He is. Everyone remembers
I love him. He plays with an edge, man.
You remember that game when was it 2 or 3 years ago now where LeBron fouled him and bloodied him and he had to get taken off the court and he went out and came all the way back around in the tunnel out to the other side to go after LeBron. I was like, this guy's got I like that. He's got moxie.
Listen, the idea that these guys aren't tough as nails is so crazy. The fact that we call the game tighter, thankfully, than we used to do doesn't mean they're soft. None of these guys are. Because let me tell you something. Beef Stew does what he does. Man, no one's backing down.
Yeah, exactly.
They just are smart enough to throw punches.
Right. I don't want to pay the money, $50,000 or whatever the hell it is you get.
Or sit games.
Right.
They want to win games. Yeah.
Right.
It was stupid back in the league. I wish they had done the same thing. They weren't any softer. These guys are not soft.
No. All right, David, speaking of a player who is not soft, but he's going to get suspended again by the Miami Heat, this time for missing a flight. Jimmy Butler. Clearly, these are the antics of a player or behaviors of a player who is trying to force his way out of town to a trade somewhere where, I mean, talk about Phoenix, talk about a whole lot of places. Let's start here. We, as at True Hoop, I think most readers and people who listen to us know we have a feeling about trading for older superstars. We generally don't like it, right? Because
making a lot of money.
Right, because it's just going to hamstring you, and the odds of you winning the title are not that much increased. But teams convince themselves to do it. They do it, whatever, it happens. Which teams should, if any, David, trade for Jim? Nobody.
You know where I was going.
Not a soul.
And I love him.
Yeah.
He's really good.
Yeah.
Like if he goes to Phoenix, which everyone thinks he is, I don't know if he is. He's better than Bradley Beal.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
But does it matter?
Doesn't make him a title contender, though. Like, he's gonna.
It's not like it's a 1-year thing either.
Well, this is the problem.
What is his deal?
Let me check Jimmy's deal right now. He might have he has that player option. I'm pretty sure.
I know he wanted the extension for Miami and didn't get it.
Yep. Okay, Jimmy Butler. So he has $48 million due to him this year, and then a player option for $52 next year, which you will 100% take unless there's a wink deal that we're going to extend.
100.
Correct. Which I'm sure that's probably what his agent is working towards.
Right.
But you and I would. And not for a 36-year-old Jimmy Butler.
Right, on Phoenix, he's the 3.
Right.
Unless you're going KD at the 5, which you can't do.
No.
No, you can't do that.
He
Not
is
for
the 3.
more than a few minutes here.
Yeah, he is the 3. Look, and Phoenix did just make that trade where they traded their 2031 first-round pick to acquire 3 firsts, and that's a signal to everybody that, they have more draft picks now, which means to sweeten the deal. And if it is a deal for Jimmy Butler, it's going to be a 3-team deal. It's not just going to be straight up between Phoenix and Miami. Milwaukee, talk of that is in there. Maybe Beal ending up there, Chris Middleton ending up somewhere else. Toronto is being talked about in the mix. But again, if your goal...
Toronto for who?
Maybe Beal ends up in Toronto and some salary sheds goes somewhere else.
Really?
Yeah. Look, again, if your goal is to be where Oklahoma City is now, or where Houston is trending towards, this behavior, not it. Like, you are not going to be there. You're going to be a 500 team, maybe a few games above 500, losing the first, second round of the playoffs, and then in 2 years when KD's 38 and Butler's 38, and you have $400 million in salary, and you have no draft picks, you're going to be in a terrible spot. And Devin Booker's going to be like, "Why am I here? I hate everybody." This is what this is right. We see it. We already see it. This is where they're going to be in 2 years with no championships. But this is Matt Ishbia, right? And James Jones. We don't care about draft picks. We want players that can help win now. It's like, okay, I get it.
Well, we don't get it though because the money doesn't make sense.
Yes.
So first of all, regarding the trades, in almost every case, if it's being written about, it's not going to happen. Now, you're right to mention the Phoenix deal because that's a sign.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. What are you getting? You're getting 3 picks for a reason.
Right.
Right. You want to do something,
mm-hmm.
But in most cases, it's overwhelmingly likely that whatever deal that happens is one we didn't see coming.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Now, there's only a few teams that could even do a deal, so it's easy to speculate, but no one really knows a fucking thing. Yeah.
Correct.
And that. So whoever's writing about Toronto is probably making it up.
Yep.
They're talking to some lower level person who, or besides not above misinformation, no GM is.
Yep.
You can't be in this business.
Mm-hmm.
You have to make everyone look left, so you can go right.
Correct.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, but at the end of the day, it's just it's too expensive this year, next year, then this year especially, unless he won't even agree to maybe without the extension, and it's just too much. Yeah.
It's like, again, the way the CBA is set up with the second apron and all the punitive taxes, and it just penalizes you for doing this. And at some point, Matt Ishbia, the Suns owner, is going to be like, I cannot keep paying this ridiculous salary for a team that doesn't do anything in the playoffs. Like, that's just, I'm literally lighting money on fire. That's what he's doing. He's torching money on fire every year. And it just does not make any sense. We know what the right thing to do is. You said it. I've said it. Kevin Durant trade is right in front of you, my guy. and it'll bring you back all the assets you want, and it won't look terrible. And I've seen a lot of people on social media talking about, oh, but how good is it when, ask the Wizards how fun it is to be rebuilding. I'm like, listen, ask Oklahoma City and Houston how it feels. It feels fucking great to be fans of those franchises right now.
I think the other thing to say is ask Washington what it's like to get luxury money.
Well, there you go.
Right? Luxury tax money. Instead of paying it all to be bad, to be not very good or disappointing. Hell, the Wizards are lucky. They're making all this money in luxury tax at the end of the year, and no one expects them to do a damn thing. I mean, they start 2 19-year-olds and a 20-year-old.
Yep.
Like, there's some SEC teams that would give them some trouble. They would lose. but there's some SEC that are grown men.
Yeah.
They're not grown men. Yeah.
No.
If when they're missing Kuzma and Poole and those guys. So, yeah, it makes no sense. But they're always, I have no sympathy for Matt Ishbia. He's got plenty of money, got more coming. Right. And when they do the expansion, they'll have even more.
Getting another couple $100 million check coming your way, like whatever. Again, you know me. I don't cry for billionaires and spending money.
No, I know.
That's your own bib. I'm just like, it's just stupid. Like, you're just being dumb for no reason when you don't have to be. That's all.
It's a lack of understanding of how our league works.
And we're going to get into that after this short commercial break. All right, David, you've got an article coming out on Troop.com. Everyone should be a subscriber. And you just said before when we were talking about the Suns and Matt Ishbia, it's a lack of understanding about how this league works. And you are talking about the NBA draft in this article coming out and how there's a fundamental misunderstanding of how teams look at the draft. And, to kind of put a general description on it, and then we can get into some specifics without spoiling the article. Everyone has always thought about drafting for upside, right? Get the 19-year-old kid who's super athletic and can potentially score 25, 30 points a game. Woo! That's the thing, right? Even though we know it might take him a while to get to that point. And all the while, if he ever gets there, Davis' point, all the while, there's a 23-year-old, a 24-year-old who it's his 5th year. Man, that dude knows how to play pick and roll defense. He's not going to hurt you on offense. He's going to move the ball. He can knock down open shots. I think of someone like Cam Johnson coming out of North Carolina, right? But so many teams just don't want to draft that guy because they're like, yeah, but he can't do the fun, flashy stuff that the 19-year-old might be able to do. And your point is like, yeah, but are you trying to win games? Or are you trying to maybe hopefully have something in the future?
Yeah, so basically the origin of the whole idea is I've always argued that draft is about upside because it should be. So I never cared about fit. You got to grab. It's a talent grab, and that's why I'm the one that's been saying now since 2007 at ESPN, the myth that he's not ready for the NBA is just that. It's a myth. Who cares? Who gives? To be frank, my answer always was, who gives a fuck? Like, are you kidding me? Who's ready for the NBA? None of these guys.
Nobody.
None of them. Not even the seniors.
Right.
He can be a 30-year-old senior. Not ready for this league.
Well, because you haven't played it yet. Like so of course you're not ready.
Right. So, but when did that stop us from drafting the teenagers, the 20-year-olds who ended up being great? Like, no one cares, except now half the teams are broke. And I mean broke, they don't have any money. Right. They have cash flow problems, to use business parlance, basic business parlance. So if you're a team outside the lottery, that also, you could also be in the lottery. If you're a team that wants to win, I've got a roster ready to go. I think we're going to start seeing more and more lack of bias against older guys, because that's always was the case before.
Yep.
Well, I'd rather take the young guy and not the older guy. Young guys got more upside. Older guys beating up younger players. Not anymore. Well, I'm watching these games. A lot of players are going back to school. They could get the two-way money, maybe if they had left. I have a player personally 2 years ago was offered a two-way. He's making more money in college now.
Yeah, and he's playing.
And he's playing right, and he gets room and board. And there's the upside that he can get himself to be a first-round pick or an early second-round pick, and then get guaranteed money instead of the two-way money. And there's a lot of stories like that. So now it's like taking a guy that's been playing First Division Italy or France. The conferences aren't that good because they are still younger. But athletically and physically, the top teams, the top conferences in the college are close to the NBA with size. You just can't go in the first box in these big leagues. There's too much size. I know, I'm helping these guys. And probably the most common term in my phone is over-penetrate. They're just getting too deep against these fucking tall guys who are strong. And so I think we're going to see a transformation in the draft where teams are going to realize, wait a second, I can draft a guy at number 15. Like Cam Johnson was a lottery pick. That wasn't normal. Everyone, probably even me back then,
everyone laughed.
He'll read the move. Oh, he's too old. Meanwhile, he's the number one trade asset for most teams right now, right?
Sure is.
Dorian Finney-Smith went undrafted. Someone should have taken that dude in the first round if you wanted to win basketball games, which these teams want to do for no money. The number 15 pick makes less than $4 million, right? The top 5 role players for OKC that aren't those high-level picks, whatever, they make a combined $70 million. Not a lot of money for 5 players.
Right.
But if you drafted guys like that, maybe in year 2, they're close to being that level, they're making a combined 20. Or even less than that, depending on where you got them. And so now imagine OKC with $50 million more to spend, right? And I think OKC is going to do this now. Now that they've seeded their land, they know who their 3 core players are for max players. And here comes Caruso and here comes Hartenstein. But watch the army of young players that they start drafting now, like AJ Mitchell with number 38 pick, ready to play guys. They can plug them right in. And for a very little money. I think other teams are going to start looking at the veteran SEC, Big 10, Big 12, Big East, maybe the top level of the Big East. Give me those guys who have practiced 1,500 pick and rolls. Remember, they don't practice in the NBA. And trust me when I tell you, pick and roll practice in the NBA is not pick and roll practice. It's walking through shit, even in training camp. They're not going that hard. That's what the games are for. Games are practice. I was telling a young player the other day who did not have a very good game, who had been injured. I didn't even send him any clips. I'm like, I wouldn't clip practice up for you. This was your second day of live action in months. Yeah, or many, many weeks. You got to just get the reps out, man. You're going to make mistakes. You got to get the feel. Yeah. These college guys have gone through so much because in college, they fucking go way too hard, by the way. Way too hard. That's a whole separate story. But it comes with a benefit. These guys know what they're doing. You got to give a chance. I think there's other reasons that I'll go in the article as to why they're not drafting these older guys. But I think you're going to start seeing more older guys and less take them on a flyer unless you're so deep. Yeah. Like I make an example in the article. The Pacers took Johnny Furphy in the second round after making the Eastern Conference Finals last year. But they have so many other young players from previous drafts, like Ben Mathurin, Jarrod Walker, Ben Shepherd, Andrew Nemhard's in his third year, that you can take a flyer on a Furphy and let him play in the G League all year, because I actually like him.
Yep.
But most of these veteran teams are better off in the first and second round taking veteran guys that can, within a year or so, be able to play for you rotation minutes and be relatively decent, if not still have good upside to grow to, at a much lower cost than having to pay those free agents the same thing.
Yeah. No, it's so smart. And again, guys that are drilled, and because we talk about it, it's a floor raiser, right? It's like, okay, ceiling might be capped, but your floor is raised, right? And sometimes floor raising is, if you're trying to win, it's even more important. You mentioned someone like Zach Edey, right? Who's a 2-time player of the year, I want to say, in the Big Ten.
I think so. Yeah.
At Purdue,
National Player of the Year.
National Player of the Year. And look, you and I have the same concerns about his lateral foot speed and all these other things. But what he is big. He can rebound and block shots, right? At a bare minimum, he should be a backup center for the rest of his career, right? At the worst case scenario.
And there's value to that. And so, but he might be being overpaid for that role, but it's only year one. I would have taken him lower. I said that, but you're not wrong. And here's the other thing. What Zach Edey was like as a freshman. So there's work ethic. There's commitment. There's a love of the game. You can't get that much better without really loving the game. I was talking to an agent the other day about a very talented lottery pick from not this last draft, but a previous draft, who still hasn't made it. I talked to the head coach of this player. He's got real concerns about this player. I was talking to an agent who does not represent this player, but was talking to other teams. And the agent said, I recruited him. I questioned how much he loved to play. But the kid got drafted after 1 year. So you don't really see that. Nobody can question Zach Edey. He completely transformed his game and his body over 4 years. I know. I watched him play his last 3 seasons, I think. Amazing story. That gives you, as an organization, real comfort as to who he's going to be at the very least. There's very little risk. You've seen the Sylvester Stallone movie? It's a clip on Instagram I've seen where he's lecturing his son about why you go to college.
No.
It's so good, Jarod. It's basically, and he does it in his very Stallone-ish accent, his tone and everything. You're giving a potential employer the idea that you've spent 4 years working reasonably hard, staying reasonably on task, accomplishing reasonable things, showing up reasonably consistently over a 4-year stretch, so that employer has some degree of reason to think he's going to be able to do the same thing, or she, for us.
Yeah.
That's a lot to do with it. Like, you see these 4-year college players at these systems. Like, if you draft a Houston Cougars player who's played 4 years there, Jarris Barker played 1, right? He played 1 year. So we don't know about Jarris. Jamal Shedd played, I think, a few years. Marcus Sasser played, 3 or 4 years. 3 years, I think. All right. That is a rough program, man. Rough program. So, he's not soft. There's no question about it. And some of these young guys that we draft who are so skinny, they are soft, but once they get a body, maybe they won't be. You're just taking a flyer hoping.
Right.
There are some guys who get stronger and still can't do it. Right? Do you remember a name, Ty Washington?
Yes, sure do.
Do you know who he plays for now?
Somewhere overseas.
No, I think he's in the G League somewhere.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. He was a high draft pick. I don't know where he was. Might have been later first. I don't remember. But these sexy names as freshmen that don't pan out, it's very unlikely for that to play 4 years. You have some bad franchises do fail with those guys. But I think if you do really well over a 4-year stretch, you should not be a failure. That's on your franchise typically. So it's just a guess that we're going to see a transformation slowly happening starting this season when these teams have no money and they have to draft a guy to fill a need because they can't get him in free agency and they want to win.
Look, we say it all the time. The NBA is a copycat league, right? And maybe this is something that teams start copying from other teams, right? But oftentimes in the NBA, they copy the wrong things, right? And it's not, they take parts and they don't do the whole full actual breakdown. It's not just picking the right guy. It's having player development. It's giving it's all the million things, right? It's not just, let me just do this thing. No. You got to do also 99 other things plus that one. And most teams just, for whatever reason, don't or don't have the impetus to or whatever, don't really care to.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll see. We're working on it now. We'll get it out maybe today, maybe tomorrow, maybe. I think it's an important piece.
Yeah.
We might wait till Monday. That's what I just said to Travis. It'll be in the next 3 working days. We'll have it.
Good stuff. And then a companion piece that'll go out too is a look at what the 2028, 2029 Thunder will look like. Because as we've said on this show, as Henry said a bunch of times, with all the picks and young players they have, they can't keep and pay everybody on that roster. That's just you have limitations. 15 spots in 3 two-ways, 18 total, right? Like, and most teams don't even keep full 18. So everyone's not going to stay. What do they do? What do they consolidate? Who do they bring in, to David's point, to keep that? Was a floor raiser who can play right now, contribute on a team that's number 1 in the West, that can help us win today, right? You'll start seeing them do some stuff.
Yeah, now that you say it, I'm going to add to my article, like, they should continue to trade down and take older players so that as Isaiah Joe ages up into too expensive, and a Hartenstein and Kenrick Williams, and
move on from them, and Lou Dort
and Aaron Wiggins. These guys are making more than pick 15 through 60 make in the draft. And so you start squeezing them out, getting more picks for them, and just keep feeding the beast with these older players that can come in right away and play. If you're lucky enough to get a young guy like Cason Wallace is playing a lot, I'm not sure he's ever going to really make it. I'm a big fan, but he's got work to do. Luckily for him, AJ Mitchell got hurt because AJ might beat him out as an older player. But they're well positioned to dominate for a long time. Yeah.
Smart moves going on over there.
Shea's unbelievable.
Oh, I mean, without question, as great as Jokic is, we're about to talk about the Nuggets in a minute, he is my MVP for sure.
Me too.
This season. David, the Denver Nuggets, who we were very worried about, all of a sudden, winners of 8 of their last 10, only a game and a half behind the Memphis Grizzlies in the 4th seed in the Western Conference. Look, Nikola Jokic is still, as David says, when he wants to be, is the best player in the world. And my God, talk about force multiplier. He is the rising tide that lifts all ships. During this 10-game stretch, Jamal Murray has also had some better games and looking like signs of life, which is huge, like, for them. They will not be anything unless he is what he can be. And so there's some positive signs there. Should the Nuggets fans start to get excited, or are we like, simmer down a little bit? Let's curb your enthusiasm.
So, no, I think they should be excited. There's caveats. When you said Murray, so he's 20 points per game last 10 games, and he's flirting with 50, 40, 90 club. So that alone is incredibly important.
Huge.
I also think he's moving way differently. I saw him get a loose ball. I'm like, is my fucking synergy on fast forward?
he's healthier. He's getting healthy.
Apparently so. Nobody else was moving like that. He got to the ball and they got a bucket out of it. Westbrook scored. That was pretty impressive. And that's the other thing.
Westbrook, yeah.
If you tell me Westbrook can shoot 40% from 3 or better going forward, I'll tell you they could beat OKC to win the West. Yeah. I'm not ready to believe it. But,
correct.
And let me tell you something. I watched him on a run out yesterday, or maybe it was last night. He laid it up. That was weird.
Yeah.
I saw him on another right at the rim, vertical, just laid it up. Okay. Russell, like, this is the trick. I think Henry and I first discovered this. Someone told us about this. It was my idea that Henry was talking about. The idea of the player, we've talked about this on the show, I'm sure, who isn't very athletic can last in the league longer because he's not relying on his athleticism. And it's wrong. It's the other way around. It's the elite athlete who, when he loses 70% of that athleticism,
is still better than
still hang around.
Yeah, right.
Like, that's Westbrook now. Who's unfair because he was number one of all time.
Oh my God.
4 point guards. Number one of all time. He still can jet by you. He just isn't lifting off at the end. Nearly. He has 18 dunks, which is not nothing. I looked it up. He had 38 last year in 68 games. So he has 18 and 42. It's pretty impressive. I think he needs the All-Star break. I think he's running out of gas a little bit, but he's fucking playing great.
He is.
Yeah, he's right, understandably so. So he's playing great. They're defending. They moved in the starting lineup. That really helped. Good job by Mike for that.
Yep.
Russell's only problem was always bad shots.
Yeah.
But he's not in control of this offense.
Correct.
Yeah, the world's best player when he wants to be is in control of the offense. So, and Russell, I'm thrilled for him.
Yeah.
I don't like painting, and I'm probably guilty as anyone, but I try not to be painting players with a broad, permanent brush. They're allowed to evolve and grow and change. And it's one of my favorite things about our game when that happens. And he has had to numerous times. And here he is at 36.
Yeah.
very important player for
Yes.
for a team that's threatening to do some damage in the playoffs.
And having seeming like playing with joy again, really enjoys playing with Jokic. I mean, how could you not?
Yeah, let's talk about that.
how,
Go further on that.
how could you not enjoy playing with Nikola Jokic? I mean,
My goodness.
he is going to you move off the ball, he will give it to you and find you. Like, and Russell knows where to go into space, get the pass. It's just he's like, man, I never scored this easy in my life because I've never played with a passer as sublime as Jokic. And by the way, Russ did play early in his career and later in his career with an elite passer in James Harden, but Jokic is even another level on top. Plus, he's 7 foot tall, and LeBron also played with LeBron, who is a generational passer, right? Like,
yeah. I wouldn't say he's Jokic. The league's better than LeBron or Harden. He's a better player now than they were when he was playing with those guys, for sure.
Yes,
but significantly so. And so I think you're exactly right. I think the Lakers were not a fun team to play on for Russell. I don't think, and aren't now. And Jokic, I've talked to players who've played with Jokic. He's the best teammate they could ever imagine.
Yeah,
he's the best teammate they could ever imagine. And Russell's just like, this is my 36th year.
Yeah,
beautiful. I got to play with this guy who just wants to win and then go talk to his horses. Like it's fucking breathtaking. Yeah, I mean, I think Shea's the same.
Yeah.
I was texting with a player from the Thunder last night who played last night. And I wrote back to him, what a game.
54 points. He's
like, what about it? Because he just took it for granted that it was Shea.
That's just what he does.
I said, yeah, SGA. He's like, oh my God, he's so special. And he's just such a great guy. Such a great guy. Yeah.
You know, there comes a point, David, and you know it, sometimes earlier for some players, sometimes later, where they're over themselves, right? And just over it all. And that's where Russell is now. Like, he's just all the shit that like mattered when you were in your 20s and whose team is it and this and KD left me and this thing and that and all. None of that shit matters now. Like, I'm 36 years old. I see the 18th green, right? Like, I can see it. I'm heading towards it. So I'm gonna get to enjoy playing with this dude who doesn't care about any of that shit, and we just have fun and we ball, and then we go home to our families and do whatever. I think it's like a renaissance, right? It's given like life. Like, oh, late in my career, this is fun stuff. It's wonderful to see.
It certainly seems like that's the case. And what do I always say? Players everyone has the privilege of growing up, us included, not just players. And yeah, as you know, my age, and I'm over so much that I used to really fret about. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And Russell really, just like I do, I appreciate every day because I know nothing's given. And Russell knows there'll be a time right soon, by the way, where he won't be lacing those sneakers up except to hang out with his kids or play pickup with some friends, but no one's going to be watching. Yeah. No one's going to be paying him for it.
Yep.
And so he's got to feel like this is just, this is what heaven feels like.
Yeah. I wanted to talk about the Clippers, but of course they lost 2 straight since I wanted to talk about them. But still, nonetheless,
but Kawhi didn't play though, did he?
He did not play last game, I don't think. But I think that's just the injury maintenance. Like he's back and part of their deal, and he's also playing better. Look, you mentioned earlier in the show, there's an aggressiveness they play with defensively. Zubac is just a big mucker upper of things. On both ends of the floor, David, defensively and when he gets the ball up above, it's like, God, like he puts his armpits into you and you can't get the ball away from him. Like they're just, and you know, a lot of people, not us, we love James Harden on this show, but a lot of people, you know, love to bash James Harden. James Harden's still playing elite basketball and is an amazing offensive orchestrator, playmaker, scorer. I mean, just a pick and roll PhD master, like just so good. Clippers, they can make some noise in the playoffs too, yeah?
I mean, they've last 10 games, they're number 1 in defense.
That helps.
I would never have predicted that. And how they doing it? They're number 1, top 4 in steals. And they're just, they're creating opportunities. They're getting coached up.
Well,
this is what good coaches do. This is what, Ty Lue, I thought about this morning on my walk. Ty Lue's been around, not as long as Rick Carlisle, but he's been around. Rick Carlisle's really been around. They both have 1 championship. I think I'm right. One each. Rick in Dallas and Ty with Cleveland. And they're not the same coaches they used to be. In fact, in some cases, they're doing similar things. They're both pressing and attacking gaps and getting the handsy and creating steals and turnovers. And they both have teams playing incredible defense in the last 10, 15 games. On teams that you would never think that would be the case.
Correct.
It's not just personnel. It's how this personnel is employed. And I love it. This is to me the heart of good coaching. Is this is where I think some guys, I don't know if they're Stan Van Gundy or not, but some guys are just too tied to how they've always done it instead of recognizing there's different ways to do it. Let me zig when other teams are zagging, and my players can do a lot of different things. And so if I was running a team, I'd want a roster that wasn't all so homogenized. I want to give my coach choices. So I may have some power forwards that can do this, but not this so good. The other power forwards can do the other stuff really well, and then the core stuff not as well. Give my coach some choices to play with it a little bit. The whole idea is to fuck that other team up for 48 minutes. Then I got to come up with something new the next game. Mm-hmm. If I can just overwhelm you with talent every game, well, then I'm the Celtics and these other teams. That's fine. But even Mark's done it in OKC. Like they don't have to be a top steals team. They could play differently. They wouldn't be as successful. He's doing it in a way that's making him very successful with a lot of young players. I had one young players, well-known reporter ask me, he doesn't think Shea should be MVP. I'm like, have you looked at their team? Like half those guys can still be in college almost.
Who do you think should be MVP?
This guy thinks another great player would be. Oh. You wouldn't be surprised who it was.
Jokic, probably.
It's not stupid.
No.
But because listen, if you want to pick Jokic, for example, you could argue what he's doing is pretty amazing. But Jamal Murray is playing fantastic right now. Mm-hmm. Westbrook is. Mm-hmm. And Mike Malone deserves some credit, but Jokic is carrying the team. Okay, fine. Mm-hmm. Shea's got a really young group.
Yeah.
He shouldn't be doing this.
Right.
And that's why I pick him as MVP, but I give Mark a ton of credit. Who was he coach of the year last year?
Yes, I believe so.
So maybe he won't get it again, but it's amazing what they're doing with a lot of young players still. Or players that anyone could have had and just chose not to have.
Anybody could have had. They were all
Aaron
sitting
Wiggins,
there. Mm-hmm.
Kendrick Williams, AJ Mitchell, second-round pick.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They drafted Dylan Jones this year. Is not really playing. Hartenstein was a good deal. Caruso was a good deal. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're just a really well-run ship right now.
Yeah, kudos, David. The NBA is in the city of light, La Ville Lumière, in France right now. The Pacers and Spurs, Wemby's hometown. They're going to play 2 games, one today, 2:00 Eastern time, and then again on Saturday, I want to say, will be the second game. Nice little, I'm going to say a home and home, but it's whatever. It's a Paris and Paris series, right? Two home games for Wemby, in that sense. And I love the idea of NBA Paris. I was fortunate enough to go in 2020, right before the pandemic. They love basketball in Paris. No surprise. It was a fun time to be out there and just see all the French fans. I did a bunch of like interviews with the people on the street. They lined up super early to get to the arena. I was like, it's just a regular season game, right? Like this doesn't it's just one of 82. But they were so pumped and excited to see these guys. And it was the Nets and the Bucks and the Hornets. So yes, you had Giannis, but I'm like, the Hornets don't have anybody. Like, what do you
LaMelo wasn't there yet?
No, it wasn't there yet. It's 2020. I'm just like, these guys aren't, but
they were seeing who was the kid from Connecticut? It was so sad we've already forgot his name.
Oh,
very
God.
good play. Kemba Walker.
Yes, yeah. And I'm just like, they're fine, but they were just so hyped up for it. Which you love to see. I'm like, great. So we know the game has got global potentials, we all know, and it could do really well in various markets. But Pascal Siakam was interviewed about being in Paris, and he had some interesting comments about the trip to Paris. David, what did he say?
Yeah. So first of all, I watched the whole press conference with Carlisle, Tyrese Halliburton, a bunch of guys. And most of the questions to Pascal were in French. That's his native language is French. So hearing him, he speaks English absolutely beautifully. And I believe he also studied German in Cameroon. So I think he's got 3 languages. But he's brilliant in French and English. And this is a thoughtful guy. Okay. Rick Carlisle told me a story. I may have told you this before, where he walked into, I think it was the Four Seasons, New York, where they were staying. They had an off night. They were in New York City. I think it was New York. And he heard a beautiful piano playing. And I think Rick plays the piano. And so he walked into the lobby. He was just curious who was playing. And it was Pascal. I had no clue. Most of these guys, there's Jaime Jaquez plays chess, and Jaylen Brown. Like, these are smart cats who are just tall, long,
kind of annoying that they could be good at basketball and can also play. Come on, man.
So many things. So when you hear him speak French, you realize, oh my God, English is his second language. That's unfair because he speaks it as good as I do, and it's my only language. So he was asked the question about NBA Europe and what it'd be like. And I just expected him to say, oh, it'd be amazing, great cities, whatever, because that's how most of these guys. Pascal's a little bit different. I've learned over the years watching him. He's like, I don't know. Paris is great, but it's a long flight. He's like, I got here. It took me a day to not feel like I was walking on air, just floating. Your head's just out of it. It is a challenge. And so you and I were talking before the show. We love the idea. Who doesn't want to grow our game? I think we have the talent for it too.
For sure can.
But I think they need to have a conference, a European conference.
Yeah.
There's got to be, if we have, so let's say we added 6 teams. We could go to 3 conferences, 12, 12, and 12. And East, West, Europe. And then let's play less games. You'll have more money.
Sure will.
Let's play less games. And so you have to just go to Europe one time. And you make your 6-game road trip, right? And you come home, right? And or you maybe you do 2. I'm sorry, you go to Europe twice.
Right.
You do 6 and 6. Those are tough road trips now.
Yeah, for sure.
You got to do the same thing when they come to the States, They do something like that. But just a one-off, hey, I'm going to go to Paris on Tuesday, and then I got to play, Golden State on Friday, or Minnesota, or Miami. No.
You're losing that game.
Too much travel.
100% you're losing that game.
Yeah, you're right. It's not fair to them. These guys want to be great players. We already ask enough.
Yeah.
And so I'm glad that Pascal was honest about that. And we'll see how Silver and those guys respond. Yeah. Maybe they'll respond to what he said, whatever. But I love the idea of 12, 12, and 12. Then it'd be super cool.
Yeah.
Or 5 teams go or 4 teams rather. Some kind of number where you can have maybe a few less teams over there and make it still work. But they can figure that out. But you can't have just a couple teams.
No, smart people can figure this out. I will say, as Pascal mentioned that, like anybody who's traveled through different time zones knows what it's like. For NBA Paris, David, I did it in 36 hours because I've been to Paris a bunch before. So it wasn't like my first time in the city. So I knew where I was going when I get to the arena, all that. But let me tell you, 36 hours, like when I got back home to New York, I was just like,
you're zonked out.
For 3 days, I was just like, man, I couldn't get my head right, much less play NBA basketball. Right?
Yeah.
Like it's just...
and this is the point. It throws off your whole training schedule. These guys are all about that schedule. They're all about that routine. And you've really fucked it up.
Yeah.
So do it one time. It's cool to be in Paris. I think Indiana and San Antonio is lucky. But to do it more than once, you're asking for trouble. And not to mention a bunch of times, you've got to let them go over there, do their 5-6 games, whatever, on a trip, 4 or 5 games, whatever. And then you got to give them 4 or 5 days off.
Absolutely.
And then they'll probably be okay.
And
think about the teams playing there. You
Yes.
can't just keep coming back and forth.
No.
We did.
No.
Yeah.
And the calendar, by the way, allows for that, right? If you keep the same length of time that we have from mid-October to beginning of April, but just cut the games, you
24 games less.
All the space you need, right? To give, you get a week here. Yeah. Plus, remember, we have the in-season tournament, so teams that don't play, they get that 4 or 5 days off. All the built-in stuff is there, and you can charge more money for this stuff. And I'm just doing like a basic, like top of head, back of napkin thing. Really smart people can actually drill down some numbers and figure out exactly how to do this. It's just about owners not wanting to cut out home dates in their home arenas.
I think it's well, you're right on the schedule, but I think the European thing. The other thing is
taxes.
Will they come to every game?
Right.
Taxes, yes, it's everything. But I mean, they don't have as listen. People trashed our president for years all you want. We've done much better economically than over there. So can you sell out? Well, if we play 58 games, can you sell out
29 times?
29? I don't know.
Right.
I don't know the economics there, but they have to factor that in. Can they support a team the way we can support teams in America? That's a fair question.
Yeah, 100%, and one that deserves looking into. And I'm sure people at the NBA office and Adam Silver have been talking about this for years now. We'll see what happens. All right, guys, you know what time it is. Top 5 time. Who are the 5 best teams in the NBA? David, who is on your 5 line?
This is not easy for me, but I'm going to give it to Denver.
Ooh.
I like what they're doing. They're hot. I'm gonna put them at number 5.
Denver is hot. I put my Grizzlies back on the 5 line. They're winning again. They're playing well. Jaren Jackson. Listen, if Jaren Jackson Jr. is not an All-Star this year, I will
it'd be a joke.
An investigation. Me and myself will launch my own investigation if he's not an All-Star this year.
You'll do what Al Pacino's character said in Son of a Woman. I'll take a flamethrower to this place.
Exactly. All right,
Yeah.
who's on your 4 line?
I have your team at number 4.
Oh, the Grizzlies. I've got the Rockets at 4.
Yeah, Rockets were 6 for me. And then at 3, I have the Boston Celtics.
Same. They're slipping. They're slipping.
Yeah, OKC and Cleveland.
I
flipped it.
I flipped it. OKC back at 1, Cleveland now at 2. Yeah.
Because they lost a couple times. Yeah.
And I think, look, it's like we've said a million. The schedule, barring some wild injury, probably isn't going to change much, right, from here on out. And so our top 2, 3 likely not going to change from here on out. 4 and 5, yes, that's for sure likely to flip around because it's very close after that. But those 3 are still far and away to us the best teams in the league. It is likely the NBA champion is one of those 3. Well, if you were to give a percentage, what would you give it as? One of those 3 teams.
I'll probably be writing about this at some point after the All-Star break. I have counted Denver out when Jamal looked so terrible. I don't count them out anymore.
Okay, they're in the mix now. Okay,
yeah, and then we'll see if they have a deal to play as well.
That's right, trade deadline.
But yeah, and Westbrook's got to shoot well. That's a fair concern. But yeah, I'm not sure anyone else besides them. I think even that's probably it. Maybe the Knicks, but I don't think so. All their guys are leading the league in minutes.
Well, we already know about them. Of course, I'm going to be shameless and ask about Memphis. If they make, what is the move they need to make for you to be like, all right, I'll give them a shot? There isn't one.
I think maybe they like Triple J at the 4, so maybe an upgrade at the 5.
Yeah, they need one.
I haven't studied enough. It's a great question. Ask me. Make that my assignment for next week, and I'll look at deeper. Yeah,
we'll look at Memphis. Yeah. Very good. All right, everybody, enjoy the weekend. If you're in the Northeast, stay warm, and we'll see you next week. Take care.